morning and welcome to the second of a series of City Council candidate forums sponsored by Blueprint Houston. I'm Linda Cohn with the League of Women Voters, serving as your moderator. This forum and the one that preceded it and the one that will follow are part of Blueprint Houston's contribution to learned and cordial public discussion so that all voters can make informed choices on Election Day. All candidates appearing on the ballot for City Council District D have been invited to attend tonight's forum. Those who have accepted our invitation are assembled in the order in which they will appear on the ballot. All have received and agreed to our forum guidelines. Any latecomers will be seated after everyone has responded to the question in progress and will participate beginning with the next question. In a departure from the usual ground rules, all candidates have been advised of the questions in advance of tonight's presentation. In addition, candidates are permitted to prepare and refer to written notes. Perhaps this will allow for a certain depth and thought in the process, kind of like an open book test, if you will. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each policy question. As the clock winds down, there will be a 10-second warning, and then there'll be a stern pronouncement that your allotted time is over. We will begin with 1 minute candidate opening statements from each of the candidates. Beginning with Christina Sanders.
Hi. And thank you so much for the work that you do here at Blueprint Houston. My name is Christina Sanders, and I was born and raised in District D. I went to a little school in Sunnyside called Grimes Elementary, Cullen Middle School, spent some time at Jack Yates High School. I graduated from Texas Southern University, and I have 2 degrees, including one in public policy. For the last 11 years, I've been organizing and working as a community advocate, and for the last 8 years, I've been working directly in public policy. I'm an adjunct professor of political science at Texas Southern University, and I teach young people about how government works and how to be able to make government work for us. And I am running because I know firsthand the challenges we face as a district. I understand the diversity of the district, and I'm excited about an opportunity to look into the next 20 years for District D.
Thank you. Next, N. Asada Richards.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Asada Richards. I'm a candidate for City Council District D. Currently, I'm a program manager at Project Row Houses. I'm also a professor at the University of Houston. I'm also appointed by the mayor to serve as a vice chair of the Houston Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, which is a $180 million institution here in Houston. And my platform is 3 key issues: revitalization and development, community building, strengthening organizations such as this, and improving and increasing individual residential participation, as well as transparent and responsive government. I believe that our government should respond to us. I believe that it should engage us, and it should allow us to participate in the process. And so I'm excited about this forum tonight, and I hope to earn your support as the next council representative for District D. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwight Boykins.
All right. My feelings are about to be hurt. And thank you for having me. My name is Dwight Boykins, candidate for Houston City Council District D. And after today, I hope I'll put you in a position where you say, well, Dwight is the best candidate in this run to represent the district going forward. I was born and raised in the district, raised by a single parent, 6 brothers, and Mama taught us just believe in God and get an education, you can do anything you want. And I never thought that those comments would put me in a position when I received my education at Texas Southern to have an opportunity to start my own government affairs firm, and then to have an opportunity to work with the first Black president this country's ever hired. And it's an honor for me to be in that position. I was tapped by Mayor Bill White to serve as one of the directors on the Hurricane Ike Board, where we took monies outside of the FEMA money to help fill in the gaps, to help people in need in the city. And then Mayor Anise Parker became, Mayor Anise Parker The voters passed Rebuild Houston in 2011, and I was tasked to serve as a commissioner to implement that program. It's a $4 billion, 25-year program, and I think I'm the most qualified candidate to be able to make certain.
Gotta cut you off. Gotta cut you off.
Hey, you know, we can go.
Yeah, we get that
Sorry
sign
about
ready. Okay, we're going to begin with the first policy question. Houston enjoys greater diversity, ethnicity, age, family structure, economic status than any other American city. But Houston's development history has been one size fits all. Considering the needs of your district, District D, how might you introduce flexibility into the system? We begin with Ms. Sanders.
Well, in District D is a very unique district. From the museum district area to Sunnyside and South Park, traditional communities, all the way down to the Alameda Mall area. It's a very unique district. The key with a leader or somebody who's going to be able to properly represent all of that diversity is balanced development. Included in my platform is balanced development, making sure that we attract businesses that aren't just businesses that are going to be there for 5 months, but attract businesses that offer the needs and the things that people in those communities go outside of the community to purchase, which allows those businesses to be sustained in those communities, but also looking at how we can have vibrant communities that offer a balance in terms of people being able to keep their property and people to be able to live in their communities, live in their homes, and then offering the great things like the Metro Rail. And I think that with a approach for balanced development, we can be able to look at the challenges of some of the most challenged areas, but also use the areas that are doing, that are in a good position. We can help to advance the needs of those areas, increasing the bike trails, and increasing the traffic in the museum district, increasing the traffic in the park, as well as looking at the Alameda Mall area, looking at how we can do a better job with increasing traffic to the businesses out in the Alameda Mall area. And I think that if we can look at a balanced approach to development, we can be inclusive of all communities, offer the needs to the communities as they need businesses there, and then also offer space and opportunity for people who would like to live and share the spaces in District D.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, the question is development flexibility.
Thank you for the question. I think we had a wonderful study that was released yesterday about sustainability in each of the districts. And District D was noted as having one of the most extremes amount of inequality within the district. So one of the things we know, but at the same time, it had a boom in terms of development. So it got high marks on development, it got low marks in terms of equality across the district. So we know that right there tells us that we need a different approach to the district and development and revitalization in the district. At Project Row Houses, we like to use a model that's called asset-based model, where we identify the assets in each community and build upon those assets in terms of development and deciding what we want to include in the community and what we want to focus on. All the communities in District D do not have the same needs. Housing needs are not the same, transportation needs are not the same, economic viability is not the same. So one, we need to start with having an accurate understanding of what each community's needs are, and then engaging each neighborhood in each community in the process. Our civic associations are perfect examples of that. Our super neighborhood associations are perfect examples of that. So one, we have to identify the assets and the challenges, and then engage the residents in a process where they get to decide what they want their communities to look like. And I think the model at Project Row House is an excellent model, where in Northern 3rd Ward, we've given that community a use of art and creativity to give it a new identity. And we need to do that in each of our neighborhoods, identify their strengths and how we want to build upon those strengths. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boykins, development flexibility in District D.
Well, if you know District D, if you're familiar with the boundaries of District D, we have a very, very diversified district. 5 major communities. We have the Alameda Genoa area, the 3rd Ward, the South Park, Midtown, and Sunnyside. And I can tell you, and I was born and raised in that area, I've seen it where it was cow pasture out there. I can tell you what the proximity to the Lions Stadium of 1.5 miles, and the Gallery River right at 6, and downtown right 1.5 miles, development is gonna come. As you go south on 288 to the east and west, all that vacant pasture out there, we know development's gonna come. The question becomes, what are we as a community looking for to build our community to be? We have different funding sources and incentives in our district, from the management district and the TERS, who have put together a master plan that I think that we all need to look at within those boundaries. What we can do to build a inclusive community together. And that's important. It's no need for me as a council member to talk about taking my district or putting in policies that can affect a master plan within those boundaries. But outside of those boundaries, I think it's important to understand it's affordable land. I think from a development perspective with the zoning issues we have here, it's nothing you really can do. We need to be inclusive and make certain that what comes in communities reflect the makeup of that neighborhood.
Thank you. Go to the second question. Many Houston neighborhoods feel threatened by inappropriate development, while others are in decline, having limited access to services, food, and goods. How would you address this dilemma? Again, we begin with Ms. Sanders.
Yes, District D has several food deserts. And what a food desert is, it's a place where people don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. You can even look in some of the streets, there's a buffet of fast food, but there's not access to fresh fruits and vegetables. That's key, and there's larger implications for what happens to communities in terms of healthcare, in terms of jobs, but District D has many food deserts. And the reason why that is important is because right now the district is struggling to get and keep grocery stores. In 2013, our district is struggling to get and keep grocery stores in areas where we have seniors that can't travel far, that can't carry a lot of things if they have to take the bus. We've got to begin to make sure that specifically in these areas, when we're bringing in businesses, we're looking at how do we use, if we're going to bring in new developments and new properties, we need to make sure that they're positioned in a way that allows us to raise the tax bracket to be able to provide the basic services. And I think that there are creative ways that we can balance development. Because one, it's unacceptable that we don't have fresh fruits and vegetables available to our seniors, for one, and kids in our communities. But two, we can bring in businesses and we can bring in some development that can be a part and create a vibrant community that would allow the tax bracket to increase enough so we can have grocery stores. That allows the people that want to live in the district to be community residents in the district, but it also allows the city to be able to service some of its most vulnerable residents. And I believe that this is something that is in a creative way could be looked at and could be figured out. I mean, because we don't really have a choice. We've got to figure it out. And I think that we can do that. And the key to this is really just looking at balanced development, making sure that every need is covered, but we're also able to create some space for wants.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Richards. I'm sorry, Ms. Sanders. We're going to go to Ms. Richards now. I'll repeat the question. Many Houston neighborhoods feel threatened by inappropriate development, while others are in decline, having limited access to services, foods, and goods. How would you address this dilemma?
The reason why development and revitalization is one of the key issues on my campaign is because of my work at the Houston Housing Authority. As the vice chair, we've been able to partner with private entities to bring development into the communities of District D. For the first time in District D, through the partnership with the Houston Housing Authority, we will have 2 grocery stores in the southeast side of town. That's an amazing accomplishment. We're able to provide the land, and then we're able to attract national vendors to that community, and then the community will decide what grocery stores they want. We've been able to use public dollars to entice private investment into the community. That is a viable option, and we've got to continue to leverage those resources. Also in 3rd Ward, the community that's also in need of revitalization and development, at Project Row Houses, we're incubating a co-op. We are providing a solution to the problem. We're encouraging our residents to come together and solve their own problem of the food issue. So again, the issue of development and revitalization is something that I take on because I've had experiences working as a resident in the community and also in a position of leadership, using public dollars to partner with private entities to bring much needed development. Outside of the district, in the 5th Ward community, we're bringing a park and a library. Again, partnering hoarding public dollars to bring in needed resources into the district. And so that's what we have to do to move this and solve this issue of development and revitalization. And I differ with the idea that residents cannot affect development. Chapter 42 was meant to do that. And if we give Chapter 42 the resources necessary, it can be an appropriate tool for residents to affect the development in their community. The problem right now is that that department is underfunded. It needs more resources so residents know that they can in fact affect the development in their communities if they don't have deeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boykins, I'll repeat the question for you as well. Many Houston neighborhoods feel threatened by inappropriate development, while others are in decline, having limited access to services, foods, and goods. How would you address this dilemma?
Well, from an inappropriate development perspective, you, again, without having zoning, you tend to have developers that can come in and pretty much demand what they want. One of the things I would like to do as a council member is set up a system where when permits are pulled, regardless of what the product is, when permits are pulled, that council member and that application is stamped, that council member at that point is notified of what some type of future development is coming into that neighborhood. And from that point, we take that application, get that person or that company that wants to develop in the neighborhood and bring them to the civic association and let them sit up and, speak in front of the group what their plans are. And so I think from that perspective, until you get some zoning in place, it's hard to monitor what, any inappropriate development coming into your neighborhood because you can't control it. Food deserts are real important, and I tell you, even before I started running for council, I had met with the president of Kroger and senior vice president of H-E-B. When you ride down Martin Luther King and you ride down some of the other areas in District D, you realize the closest grocery store, which is not a brand name store, is many miles away, and you have senior citizens that need great produce. And I think that's something that has to be addressed. But how you lure them in is by using, a 380 agreement with the city, enterprise fund with the state, private-public partnership, help with through the management district or TERS. There are ways you can use incentives to lure them in. And I can tell you this, the buying power is in our community. Because if you look in some of these neighborhoods and as we walk the community, a lot of the senior citizens are there, retired, and they're on a fixed income, but they can buy that product in that store. We just have to make it accessible.
Thank you. The third question, how would you make the capital improvement plan process more effective in meeting the infrastructure needs of your district, District D? Do you have a better idea? And we begin once again with Christina Sanders.
Well, so my campaign is about the next 20 years. And most of the time when we talk about city council, it's, they're pledges for 20 months and 2 years, but we've really as a city got to start thinking into 20 years. We've got to begin to plan that today. And so with the CIP process and even the process of how we deal with infrastructure, how we deal with fixing streets, there should be a process similar to what businesses use where streets are set to be fixed, where they're set to be maintenance, where they're set to be able to be addressed on a schedule. We've got to make sure that we can, first of all, we've got to make sure that we can get to capacity to be able to take care of the entire city. But once we figure out how to put all the streets on schedule and put the things that we need repairing on schedule and all of the improvements that we need on schedule, we can also start thinking about how do we work with the University of Houston, how do we work with Texas Southern University to innovate and to be able to create things that make, to create processes that make, laying a street easier. The technology that's out there in many other places, we've got to look at how we then make it cheaper. But we've got to start that today and figuring out how we make sure that the streets are on a schedule, improvements around the city are on the schedule so communities aren't skipped over is something that we have to do. And then we can start having a conversation about what are we building in our city and how are we building additional businesses. And I think we've got to move towards advancing the process, advancing the money that we're currently spending on the process, and innovating what we're doing with the actual material. And if we're planning for 20 years, we can save the city some money and we can really move into the future, which is where we probably should be. And that's what my campaign is about, planning for these next 20 years.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. We welcome Demetria Smith. I will repeat the question. How would you make the capital improvement plan process more effective in meeting the infrastructure needs of District D? do you have a better idea?
Simple, straight, to the point. On-time project, on-time budget for execution. This to ensure that everything has been scheduled timely, it starts timely, and it finished timely. Just simple and straight, because the process is already in place, but we definitely have to supervise and actually hold people up to their accountability. So on-time project, on-time budget, timely execution, start to finish, simple.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, I'll repeat the question for you as well. How would you make the capital improvement plan process more effective in meeting the infrastructure needs of District D, and do you have a better idea?
I think that the sustainability study, which I cited earlier, is an excellent starting point for us. What we know is that this city is doing well. But what the study shows is that that well and the well-being of the city is not even across all districts. There's some districts that are sorely in need of investment. And I think starting with that is where we start with the capital improvement plan. We need to first assess the districts that have the most needs. And then part of the matrix is the districts, the available resources in those districts. Districts are not all equal in terms of resources. Some have management districts, some have other quasi-governmental agencies that are able to invest in those districts. That should be taken into account when we invest the city's money. The city money should be used wisely. We should invest the city money in ways in which will improve the quality of the neighborhoods to bring them on par with other neighborhoods. If we start with the metric of where we are and then include what resources are available in each district, then that's a smarter, better use of our resources. We should not be pouring dollars into districts that have other sources of funds. We should use those valuable tax dollars to bring the districts who need to come ahead in terms of infrastructure, in terms of resources and livability. We know where those districts are. We have the information now. Now we can use that information to make wise investments, to make all of our neighborhoods, high quality neighborhoods, to represent the high quality city, which we're getting a reputation for across the nation and across the world.
Thank you. Mr. Boykin, how would you make the capital improvement plan process more effective in meeting the needs of District D?
First of all, it's a great question because you pulled out of the CIP the infrastructure component. And for those who are not aware, we've addressed this. The voters passed it in November of 2011. There's a plan called Rebuild Houston. It's a 25-year infrastructure plan that's going to redo the streets and drainage throughout the city. I was fortunate enough to be named as one of the first commissioners on this board. I've been underneath the streets. I've seen infrastructure, how infrastructure is put in the ground. And I understand that the plan going forward, we took the mayor actually took the last 15, the past 15 years, and combined them into 5 years into the CIP. And then the next 5 will be worst streets first. That's how we're gonna determine based on condition of street, not neighborhood. What we will need as a council member is someone who can look at that report and know without a shadow of a doubt that if my streets are not on there, I know my neighborhoods, I know my streets. I understand the PRC scores to those streets. What makes a street bad? You gotta understand that Public Works won't drive me as your council member. I understand that program and I can ask the right questions. You gotta make certain, I think it's important, we put somebody in there as we start spending this money for the next 23 years, this is a crucial time to have somebody at the table who understands this implementation. We're talking about a pay-as-you-go program that's a dedicated source of money that any new mayor can come in and redirect that money. The count is 2310, we've collected close to $220 million. So I'm very focused on this, make certain that the streets in District D are implemented correctly and on time.
Thank you. We continue with our 4th policy question of the evening, and it's about light rail. Several new light rail lines are due to begin service soon, but they will address only a fraction of Houston's transportation needs. How will these lines benefit your district, and what steps can the city take to meet the transportation needs of your constituents? We begin, as always, with Christina Sanders.
Thank you. Light rail is in the heart of the district, and I'm really excited about it because the students at the University of Houston and Texas Southern they'll have direct access to it. There's many plans out there, and what we can suspect is that there will be a lot of business attracted right around the rail. I think that that's exciting. I think that cities that have vibrant centers that could be created around the rail, I mean, I think that's amazing to be able to have that right there in the district where the universities are. But I also think that we've got to make sure that the city's responsibility is also still to balance, because we're really representing the people in that community. We want businesses, we attract businesses, we make sure we protect business rights, but we've also got to make sure that we're very strategic about protecting the property rights of the people that live there. And so the interest, I believe, with the balance in transportation is the constituents that may need, access to the rail by the bus line. We've just got to make sure that we're doing the surveys, we're looking at the population, looking at how the demographics are shifting, because when the rail comes, there will be a slight shift in demographics. And we just got to make sure we're doing everything we can for the people that are likely to use the rail, or likely to need to get a bus to use the rail, that they're having access to the Metro Rail. And then we're also thinking about what's the next step and the next phase of rail. People can say no, people can say, it's not right now, but we've got to start right now if we want to make sure that Houston in 20 years is on the right track where we should be with the environment, with our economy, with transportation, and I believe we can do that. And I believe with rail we can have balance, and we can create some vibrancy in the District D area.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, the topic is light rail and the transportation needs of your constituents.
The benefit is very fast, very convenient. Our citizens can definitely get to their jobs. They can definitely be mobilized in a quicker, faster way. But to involve them, to engage them, I would say, as a city council member, we want to definitely include them in our town hall meetings, send newsletters out, include them in the planning process. Let's get their feedback. What's good or what's not, what we're working, what we're not. So it's just, again, simple, straight to the point. It's easy, fast, convenient. You can get to where you have to go. Just put them in the planning process, and we can just close the chapter on that one.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, light rail and the transportation needs of District D.
Again, going back to that wonderful study, I guess you think I maybe helped with it. I didn't, but it gave some excellent information about transit in the districts. And District D has a high population of residents that use public transit. And in fact, we have also a small distance between where people live in the district and their access to those transit stops. So that's excellent. What we know is that the residents in District D use public transportation. And what we do know is that the light rail will not alleviate that use. So we have to make sure that Metro continues to invest in those transit routes. We have to make sure we have bus shelters that allow and encourage people to continue to use that. And then we need alternative transportations. I'm happy that at Project Girl Houses yesterday we got our new rental mobile bike station. So you can come, you can ride from the Museum District, the Menil, over to Project Girl Houses, jump back off, and come back the other direction. So we are in District D and in my community encouraging people to use other means of transportation other than vehicles, because we know that many people in District D don't have access to their private vehicles. So one, we've got to be creative in our approaches. Every community has a different set of needs. We have to make sure that we protect those residents. And in District D, I want to also bring up Metro Lift. In District D, we have a high number of residents who use Metro Lift. We have to make sure we're not taking needed resources to fund rail away from the traditional bus routes and bus services, which we know the residents of District D need. So it's about being creative. It's about accessing the many possibilities of transportation and encouraging new ways to move around Houston. It's hard for us to get out our vehicles. I know it's hard, but we've got to encourage our residents to use means that really provide and nurture the sustainability of our communities and our cities. We know Houston has a pollution problem, and that's one of the environmental issues that I'm concerned about. So when we tackle transit issues, we really are dealing with a lot of issues facing our community. So I think I want to protect bus routes and encourage us to get on those bikes.
Thank you. Mr. Boykins, the transportation needs of District D. 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, I've always been an advocate for increased bus ridership and increased bus routes. But I can tell you, FTA now see a new gorilla in the room when they get talking about disseminating dollars, federal transit dollars, from the East Coast, because Houston has made its mark. And I think as our city continue to grow, every day we're meeting people from Chicago, at least I am, Chicago, New York, Philly, coming into Houston, because we have a great economy, we have a great city, excellent livable space. But what we're finding also is that these same people are saying they're demanding a second and an expansive level of transportation. They're used to rail. They don't care if gas is $20 a gallon because they're used to it. And the way this city is laid out, with the airports we have, with the way the jobs are laid out with the corporations, I think it just makes no sense. So my goal as your council member is to be able to make certain that whatever legislative agenda the city of Houston put forward, that we start working with Metro and their officials to make certain that we're competing for those federal dollars with a comprehensive plan. And let me just be clear about one thing. FTA will not, when you issue federal money for rail, that money's for rail. It's not for buses, it's not for any other service, it's only for rail. In the East Coast, again, those cities up there, they clearly get it. And I think it's important that we make certain that we make our voices known that rail is, an expansion of rail in Houston is what we want. So I think this mayor or the next mayor coming in would have to have an agenda that understands that we have to be a competing city to go after these federal dollars to improve our transportation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We're ready for question number 5. How would you work with super neighborhood councils to involve citizens in determining a neighborhood's future with municipal management districts? And we begin with Christina Sanders.
Thank you. So this is a campaign about the next 20 years. Why? Because at the University of Houston, at Texas Southern, on average, our young people who we need to move into the neighborhoods to be our tax base, they're graduating with $35,000 in debt on average, no job or underemployed. We need to right now really think about, as a city, what really does the future of our communities look like? And the first thing we've got to do is we've got to be real about the impact that they're having, the economic impact that's hitting them, not allowing them to start their American dream. Why? Because there are young families in the South Union area. There's young families in the medical center area. We've got to figure out, how do we begin to engage them in the super neighborhoods today? Because 20 years from now, them getting in the process then might not be beneficial to Houston or the amazing work that you're doing and we're laying out right now today. We've got to get them in the conversation, the young families. But also, we've got to be very cognizant of the challenges we are going to have because of the economy. For the first generation ever in the history of the country, the Center for American Progress has reported that our kids, or the kids today, are expected to not even make as much as their parents. We've got to be real about the possible and the potential impacts of young people who are our tax base. The city needs to raise cash, but will they have it? How do we sustain communities, healthy communities? We've got to get young families, recruit them into these super neighborhoods so that they can work with the elders, so that they can work with the leaders there, so that they can at least today begin to understand the process. That's how we sustain this vision, but that's how we really create something that can grow. And a lot of cities are going to get hit with this challenge with these young people not being able to raise as much cash for cities, but I think Houston can be in a better place if we're cognizant and we prepare, and we can get young people in super neighborhoods, and we can really create a community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just go right ahead and get with the super neighborhood leaders and just identify issues, concerns, needs of our constituents. Bottom line, take a survey, because it was a simple question. So you take a survey and you find out what the needs are. Again, you engage them in the process. Again, I'm going to say it again, find out what the needs are and see what we can do as a whole to improve our community. Simple cut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Richards, we're talking about super neighborhood councils and municipal management districts.
Thank you. I want to say that to the current councilwoman's credit, Wanda Adams, she's done an excellent job of working with the super neighborhood councils in District D. And so part of my platform is of community building. And part of community building is strengthening an existing organization and encouraging new participation. So I think that super neighborhoods in District D are very active and they're very much a part of the process. The issue, however, is that all civic associations associations are not tied into the super neighborhood system. And that really is the issue. So when I'm out block walking, out meeting people in the community, I'm telling them for the first time about the super neighborhood. And so that's one of the things we've got to change. We've got to have a broader base of participation across the district. We know that in the Sunnyside, South Park area, very active group of residents. However, I will say to my fellow third warders in this room that third ward is not as civically engaged. Why? Because many of them are renters. It's a different type of neighborhood. And so in Northern Third Ward, we're creating an Emancipation Park Civic Association, which is not just about homeowners, but about anybody that lives in that neighborhood. So one, we have to have new models to engage. And about the management district, I was recently at a Southeast Management District meeting, and one of the things that I asked for was better coordination. I wanted better coordination between the district, between the civic associations, so that we all know what are the plans. If the management district is doing Holman Street, we should know that they're doing Holman Street. If they're doing McGowan Street, we should know that they're doing McGowan Street, so that we can take our resources and invest them in other ways. So in terms of the municipal districts, we need a better coordination, and that question was taken very seriously. We need a better coordination between what the city is doing in terms of investment and resources, the management doing in terms of investment and resources, and other quasi-government agencies. So we need better communication with the municipal districts.
Thank you. Mr. Boykins, the topic is super neighborhood councils and municipal management districts.
Well, let me just say that in terms of what's going on in District D with our management district, I give them the utmost level of respect and utmost level of confidence in what they've done. I've participated in meetings with this group for at least last couple of years, and how they are pulling neighborhoods together within their boundaries, I think is remarkable. And the sign for that is the development that comes with it. And I think as your council member, what I would like to see happen more of is, one, try to extend the term on it to make certain we can carry on what we need. Hopefully we don't have to incur no new debt on that, but to make certain we keep it, because it's a wonderful tool to help with, land acquisition, infrastructure, and different type of projects. So as a council member, again, one of the things I will do is make certain I have adequate staff that's prepared to go and sit in these meetings and lend an ear from the council office to the management district crew, and make certain within those super neighborhoods, and they do come to the meetings, the ones I've attended, that they're engaged as well.
Thank you. This is our final policy question of the evening. Are there issues addressed in the Houston Urban Framework Plan recently completed by the Department of Planning and Development that affect your district, District D? And how might you implement these goals? Christina Sanders.
Yes, thank you. There's a couple of things. One discussed earlier, which is about the access to the food, the needs of the community. That's really important for us to figure that out. And I think that if we really look at including more of the balanced conversation, I think that we can make sure that we're, even as we're moving with the plan, that we're including the community at every step, and as the communities are changing, we're including the community in the conversation. I think that one of the things, and in my platform, one of the things that my campaign will do is really look at how we as a city can make sure that this plan and plans like this can actually happen. 3 to 5 after-school programs, a very simple thing that if we can put these back in the schools in District D alone, we can be able to save the city some money and long-term raise cash, because we now have individuals that are more likely able to contribute to the city and to the future of the city. And I think the key piece to that is really looking at where we are having challenges with in urban areas, and making sure that we're beginning to address those challenges directly. And I think that that's something that we'll be able to work towards the plan.
Thank you. Demetra Smith. Topic is Houston Urban Framework Plan.
Well, there's a lot of needs in District D. And let's just go ahead and get to the bottom. Our district, if you look around our district does not have enough revenue coming from the district. You know, so we're not a tax-based area. I would like to see more higher income mixed families in the community. I like to see more mixed housing development. And I'm not talking about Section 8 housing development either. I mean, even though, you know, we have to help, you know, our fellow citizens also as well. But I like to see our district actually grow in terms of finances. If we can get our district growing in terms of finances, the city of Houston would not have to sit here and try to borrow money from private sector. So funding will already be in place. So I like to see more economic development in our community. But again, it will start with the basis of education. Now, let's talk about that a little bit before you give me the stop sign. So, when the doors close to our schools, and y'all might say she's getting off track here, but when this all has something to do with the framework. When the doors close to our school, it's not because it's a black and white thing, and I will say that. It's because our population is not there anymore. It's because our population have moved away or died out or went to prison. Because so therefore when our population move out, we have no more tax base, we have no more revenue. So where are we going to get funding from if it's not coming out our district? So we have to hold up our end of the bargain here. So what I like to see more is more financial education. I like to see more buying power, but we have to educate our community. If our community is unaware, they do not know anything about financing, managing, budgeting, then we will not succeed as a community. Thank you for that stop sign because I was thirsty.
Thank you. Ms. Richards?
Yes, I think the one I want to acknowledge, the Houston Urban Framework Plan. He gave us 6 key goals: housing, infrastructure, economic visibility and diversity, community stability, accessibility and equality, sustainable healthy design, and multimodal transportation and increased connectivity. According to the study that was released by Rice yesterday, District D has a need for all of those areas. It absolutely does. And that's why my 3 key issues are revitalization and development, community building, and then responsive and transparent government. Because if we use those 3 issues, we can address all of the goals. And what they're talking about is a urban living center. Those 3 goals make a community, a living center, livable. And without zoning, we have wonderful planners, people who can give us guidelines. And so I love the framework. It's a framework that the district should be using, that I'm going to be using as the next city council representative to be the marker for what it takes for us to be a livable district, a district that provides nurturing and sustainability for the residents and also sustainability for the city. And so I think housing, as the vice chair of the Houston Housing Authority, I've shown that I can advocate and bring innovative development. Infrastructure, we know that we have rebuild, but we know rebuild is not transparent and responsive. We've got to do some changes there. Economic visibility and diversity, I've done that with the Houston Housing Authority. Retail, 2 grocery stores, been able to do that. Community stability and accessibility, we're talking about that in terms of bringing in different ways in which people connect with one another, different ways in which we build relationships within the community. We've done that at Project Row Houses. I think I have a history to that. Sustainability and healthy design, that's why we have the bikes. It's about bike and pedestrian paths. And then finally, multimodal transportation and increased connectivity. So everything we've been talking about tonight is about that framework, and I think I'm in an excellent position to bring that framework on board for District D. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boykins, the Urban Framework Plan.
Well, the concept of an urban framework basically is a tool used to bring communities together, bring people together. And the city of Houston, we can tell you all this stuff that sounds good, but you have a budget. And within that budget, you can get certain projects, certain requests from the mayor's office accomplished in your council district. You also can be creative and work with some of the federal agencies to identify or earmark, we would say, monies to your district for a specific type of request. For an example, this past summer we had a mayor to come in from San Antonio, the Museum District Civic Club Association from San Diego, that brought a complete street concept in. And one of the questions I had after the meeting was connecting from that side of Alameda to the McGregor side, connecting the neighborhoods as we reconstruct these streets, again, with this Rebuild Houston concept and program that's in place. So that's one way of bringing communities together. We look at the corridor of Alameda, where we have a lot of, you got high rises coming up, and you have homes, single-family dwellings on the other side. We have a lot of opportunities for commercial development to come, ice cream shops, coffee shops, where people can walk, ride bikes, and mingle and get to know one another. I'm looking forward to the National Night Out that's coming up next week, because it'll be 1 year further where communities are coming together and the diversity is there, and you see the needs for all these new, different type of programs and activities that we didn't have 10 and 20 years ago. So I think the concept of the framework is important, and I look forward to implement as much as I can, not only negotiating with the city's budget, but with some federal and state matching dollars if we can. Because all this can sound good, but if you can't negotiate and work with your colleagues on council, know those department heads, or pursue additional money outside the city's general budget, it's just hot air.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we turn to our audience. Perhaps one or two of you might like to ask a question. If so, raise your hand. No questions?
Thank you all.
Cause it's hot in here.
Thank you. Thank you. In a departure from our plans, I'm going to ask each candidate 2 minutes closing statements. What's the takeaway? What do you want these good people and the people who are going to be viewing this forum on television, what do you want them to know about you? Beginning, as always, with Christina Sanders.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for allowing us this opportunity to share our ideas and our visions. And I will say that running, my name is Christina Sanders, and being educated, well educated in the district, I know Sunnyside, South Park, 3rd Ward. I live near the Museum District in the 3rd Ward area. I'm very familiar with the challenges that young people at the University of Houston, at Texas Southern, that they face. We need someone on council that is thinking further than 20 months. Pay as you go is great, but we cannot be pay as you go in 40 years. We've got to start figuring out the next 20 years today. And we've also got to be cognizant about making sure that leadership is in position to be able to see these things through. So many times cities plan great things, but they don't come to the place that they possibly or potentially can go because there's the gaps. And in running, I understand the diversity, the diverse needs, and how Houston is changing. Houston is now the most diverse city in America. Our chapter, our book is not like any other book or chapter that's written or being written right now in the country. And that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to think now, look at the challenges, look at what's happening, look at how the city works, and really take a strategic focus on how do we do better? How do we get better? We've got to start thinking about 20 years. Today was planned 20 years ago. We've got to start thinking about the next 20 years, and that's why I'm running. I'm running because we've got to really pay attention to the economy. We can have all the ideas in the world, but if we're not taking it one step at a time, looking at how we get, the revenue that we're getting, what types of businesses are we attracting, and are we producing the workforce at the University of Houston and at TSU to be able to supply the jobs of the world? Secret, not a secret really. Young people in 20 years won't be competing against Georgia in Texas or from Texas. They'll be competing against China. We've got to do better. We've got to think 20 years. We can do it. My name is Christina Sanders, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Closing statements continue with Demetra Smith.
Can I stand up?
Of course you
please?
can.
Yeah. Thank y'all. Can y'all see me? Good. I know you can. It's kind of hot, so sorry. My name is Demetra Smith, and I better not even go there. But anyway, my name is Demetra Smith, and I am running for city council because of my background experience. You have to have the experience. You can have all the accolades. You can have all the education. But if you do not have experience in knowing how to manage a district, knowing how to manage a business, then you can just talk all you want. Because once it's showtime, it's showtime. And no one should be deceived or disturbed at all. I think it takes more than education. Education, yes, I'm for it, all the way. But experience have to step into place. You have to articulate what is going on in your economy. Otherwise, you will disturb your constituents. Now, I'm sorry I had to go off track, but no more lies. No more deceit. No more leaving our constituents behind. No more neglect. No more crab in the buckets. No more rat races. Just no more. It's just time. Right now, our people are suffering They're in a lot of pain. Yes. No more lies, and I will say it again. What I do not like about this race is when you do have experienced people in the House that understand business and that understand budget, but you have 11 more people or 10 more people capitalizing off of somebody else's experience. What I feel like we're doing here is training candidates. And I have to say it because I am for the people, I will stand for the people, and I will fight all the way to the end because this is real. And my name is Demetria Smith.
Thank you. We continue with N.
And I'm gonna go find some water.
Thank you tonight. This has been an excellent opportunity to talk about very important issues. I'm running for City Council District D. I like to say not because District D is full of a lot of problems, but because it's full of a lot of assets and resources. I was a single mother in high school. I was able to go on to the University of Houston and earn my bachelor's degree, and then with a lot of support and a lot of encouragement, go on to Penn State and earn a PhD. That's what District D produces. It produces success. It defies expectations. And that's why I want to represent District D. I was a professor at the University of Pittsburgh. I came back to District D, not because it was a horrible community, but because it was a wonderful community full of assets. I want to build on those assets and make sure that the district represents the greatness of this city. I have the experience. I have the commitment. I've been working in community since the age of 16. That's why Ada Edwards is endorsing me in this campaign. That's why I have Peter Brown and Sue Lovell endorsing me in this campaign, because they understand that I understand what it takes to build a community by working with the community and building a bridge across public and private sectors. I am excited about Houston. I'm excited about District D. I'm excited about what we're doing today and what we're going to be doing tomorrow. I have a wonderful history in this district, and I am so happy to represent it with the dignity and the respect that it deserves. And so everyone, thank you for coming out tonight, and I'm asking and I'm having the wonderful opportunity to earn your vote for City Council District D. It would be my honor to serve you and to serve the city of Houston. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwight Boykins, what do the voters need to know about you?
That he better clap for me. Let me just say, District D is a beautiful city. I was born in this district at Jefferson Davis Hospital, and I was telling one of the campaign workers the other day, the young lady said, "Mr. Boykin, where is Jefferson Davis Hospital?" And I realized I done turned that curve a little bit. My wife and I have been married for 24 years, and if you know anything about us, we've given so much to this district. And the reason being is because District D has done so much for me. I tell the story about where God has given me a vision and done so much in my life where we've been a blessing to others. It's just second nature for us to be able to help others. But it's important that as we move forward with District D, that we have people that are qualified to hit the ground running. You have a $4 billion budget within the city of Houston, a $4 billion budget. You're the second or third largest city in the state. Important decisions have to be made, not based on emotions, but based on being qualified to understand the impact of those decisions that's being made. And you also got to understand that most council districts has about a $400,000, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it is, a budget to operate. In my office, I would have adequate staff, competent staff. We would have 2 satellite offices because the district is so unique. We're looking at on the Fuquay area and in the Sunnyside South Park area. So my senior citizens and people who at this point doesn't have transportation or just need easy access to the council office, because I will go to each one once a week, that we can deal with the issues out in the community. And I think it's important to bring the district to the community. And I also been endorsed. Let me just tell you how honored I am to have the support of former Mayor Lee P. Brown. When I talked to him, that was a tough endorsement to get because he brought neighborhood standards to Houston. And he was honored to give me this endorsement, as well as Reverend Bill Lawson. And if you know anything about Reverend Lawson, you know he doesn't just hand them out. State Representative Boris Miles, State Representative Al Allen, Harris County Judge Vince Ryan, the Sheriff Adrian Garcia. And the reason they all supported me is because they know I have a commitment and I understand how this system works. And I look forward to represent the people of District D. Thank you all for coming out. And again, I remember when Peter Brown and some other guys put this program together, and I'm glad to see it still going.
Thank you. And that will wrap it up for this evening. Thanks to to our candidates, Christina Sanders, Demetra Smith, Anisata Richards, and Dwight Boykins. Thanks to Joe Webb, the chair of Blueprint Houston. Thanks to Martha Murphy, Blueprint Houston's executive director. And thanks to our timekeeper, Mike McEnany. And thanks to all of you for coming, for listening, and for being a vital part of our great American democracy.